from the African continent, and from that point out, the only story we have gotten is what white folks told us. After all, white folks come out with their own intellectual magazines, is that right? Yeah. White folks came out on December 18, 1995 and said, is the Bible fact or fiction? This is white folks questioning their own stuff. So if white folks questioning some of this stuff, isn't it only fair? Isn't it only just that we should question some of this? In fact, when you go inside of time, it says, are the Bible stories true? Now, if white folks are questioning this, brothers and sisters, we equally should question this ourselves. Is that right? So we want to look at these Bible stories. We want to look at the chronology of the Bible. We're going to look at the creation story. We're going to look at the Adam and Eve story. We're going to look at Cain and Abel, Noah, the flood, Abraham, all of this, Isaac, Jacob, Moses. We're going to look at these patriarchs because they stand on African knowledge. They stand on the foundation of African spiritual concepts. And when we open up the book where it says, let there be light, and God said, let there be light, according to Genesis 1 and 3, you notice they always give us a sketch. I mean, we got hypnotized by a little sketch of white folks' God. But our ancestors carved brilliantly and painted brilliantly the concept of monotheism, the concept of one God called Ptah. How can we accept the sketch when we got this? Well, they still can't figure out how we painted on the monuments and temples and carved for thousands of years, brothers and sisters. Ptah, an anthropomorphic concept of God, is jet black. Why? Because the key carbon for life in the universe is what color? Blackness. Here we see in pre-dynastic times Ptah. Long before there was Elohim, long before there was Yahweh, long before Jehovah, even long before the concept of Allah, long before all those terms, our ancestors had the concept of monotheism. All over the African continent there was a concept of monotheism. Like we see among the Dogon, we call God Amma. Also in Kenya, we call God Ngai. So we see the concept of one God is all over the African continent. Ptah is holding the Wa scepter. That is the power. Now let's look and see. There were also creation stories in other parts of Kemet, like in Upper Kemet and Ta-Nehisi, called Nubia today. Here you see the god Khnum fashioning man on the potter's wheel out of clay. So here we see people just came and picked, like scavengers, different concepts. But yet when we go in the Bible and it says, so look at this now, but according to Jeremiah chapter 18 verse 1 and 6, but now, O Lord, thou art the Father, and we are the clay, and thou the potter, and we are the work of thy hand. But wait a minute, that was carved thousands of years ago in stone in Kemet, long before it ended up in Jeremiah, brothers and sisters. In fact, here you see that this stone was found by Shabaka. It was the stone of his ancestors, Shabaka of the 25th dynasty. This was the stellar stone of Ptah and the creation of the universe, known as the Zep Tepi, the first time of creation, also known as the Memphite theology story. Here this is Ptah uttered in the universe. And on the stone it says that I came forth from among the plants which I created, and I created all things which creep and crawl. Doesn't that sound like a familiar account? Goes on to say, then by the powers of principles, light and air and the powers of principles, heavens and earth were brought into being. This was the creation of the heavens and the earth, and Asar and Aset, although you have the Greek names here, Osiris, Horus, and Set. So here you see the whole creation of the universe was already known by our ancestors, and this was told in anthropomorphic form, and Atum was not a man, Atum was the sun. In fact, the universe was the heavens Nut, represented as an African goddess. Why an African goddess represented the universe? Because her body operates on the same principle as the micro-universe of the woman. This was known as air, earth, fire, and water, and also the heavens Nut, air, Shu, and the earth was called Geb. This is long before Jehovah God's creation story. This was told on ancient papyruses. You see the African goddess Nut, Shu the air, and Geb was the earth, told in anthropomorphic forms. This is where the Mosaic creation story took from the Memphite theology story to make up their creation story. Ptah separated the heavens and the earth, called Nut and Geb, just like God, Jehovah God, separated the heavens and the earth. Shu was the air, just like air that was blown into Adam's nostrils. So our ancestors had this creation story countless thousands of years before the Mosaic creation story was even in existence. And out of the elemental forces of Nut, Shu, and Geb that was created by Ptah, the first man and woman were created in the African creation story. Long before Adam and Eve, our ancestors created Asar and Aset. She has the throne on her head because in order for the man to sit on the throne, he must come through her. What man can say that he did not come from his mother's womb? There was no story that a rib was taken from the man to make the woman. How can we be so gullible when all of us can lift up our shirt and see that neighbor where that umbilical cord was severed from our mothers? The first man and woman created on earth, and we definitely didn't create no Adam and Eve and definitely no Adam and Steve. But our ancestors saw that in the matrilineal system, it was through the goddess that our ancestors saw that our ancestral line came from. It was through her that she held the throne in order for the man to sit on. So our ancestors knew then that you must come through the woman to sit on the throne. This is a story that was known for countless thousands of years. Our ancestors are the ones who had the earliest creation story, resurrection story, per Emharu coming forth by day and by night, although Budge corrupted it and called it Book of the Dead. They robbed from the tombs. That's why they called the Book of the Dead, because they said they were robbing from the dead. But let's look at this now, because per Emharu translated means coming forth by day and by night. Look at that. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. That was taken from per Emharu coming forth by day and by night that ended up in Genesis.